Other issue I have is I don't think they should have been protesting. This wasn't a case involving a girl who was trying to go to college or a girl who, valued her future. This was involving a girl who lived by taking risk, a girl who lived for the now. And I'm not saying you can't have a good time, you can't do those things, but when you are one of those people who live recklessly, you end up suffering as a result of your negligent behavior. I'm not going to support that. It is illegal to drink underage, period. And knowing that, if I get out there and protest for a person dying as a result of their reckless behavior, whether or not I feel as though I am promoting that, you're promoting that. It is terribly sad. I send my condolences to her entire family of what happened. It's horrific what happened. However, there's no evidence to suggest that she was raped. There's no evidence to suggest that she was drugged. There's no evidence to suggest that she was set up. The girl's toxicology report has not been let out yet. Do I think the hotel was at fault? No. There have been no persons of interest. There has not been any suspects. Our emotions have caused us to think, oh my God, Black women don't die in freak accidents like this. Something must have happened. A Black man must have raped her. If you haven't stopped it by now, I hope eventually you don't have to face a life or death situation that'll force you to stop it. So that was my response to you, King Kunta, and give me your response.
Hey, yo, man, peace and Black power, arm, leg, arm, head. You already know what it is. Let me just say this for the record. You know what I'm saying? I love all my people at the end of the day. I wish not to quarrel with any of my people, and while we all may have differences of opinion, at the end of the day, we still have one thing in common that should bring us closer than any disagreement that we could possibly have, and that's the fact that we are Black people and we are God's people. With that being said, let's get to it, shall we? I watched the sister's video, and this is the thing. A lot was said, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to respond to this. First of all, for the record, I'm not from Chicago. I'm not in Chicago. So, it's very important for me to just state that, because I don't want people to think. I got people on foot in Chicago. So that's pretty much where I'm getting, like I said, I've been following this shit from the very beginning. I heard the response, and I just want to say there's a few things I disagree with. It's a lot of things I disagree with, to be honest, because everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I'm not trying to defend any of the protesters in particular. I just been following this shit from the beginning, and I just fell in love with the movement. In this particular instance, I feel like some of that stuff didn't apply to this situation, just for the simple fact that, all right, let's start from the beginning. So I put out a video titled, did the mother of Kenneka Jenkins, Mother Teresa, was she paid off to abruptly end the protest, and in the process discredit the protesters? That was the question I asked. Now, like I said, none of this is facts, right? This is all my opinion. Obviously, of course, certain things is going to be facts, because certain things are just documented, and you can't go against what's been documented. And I just don't want to. I'm just not coming with that negative energy. So I don't want people to get it twisted when I say this. But I do feel like she was paid off. So everybody, of course, hears about this tragedy. The whole motherfucking world goes crazy, right? Well, not the whole world, but social media went bananas. Blitz. Everybody's talking about it. I made a mistake that I want to correct. I said something in my last video that wasn't necessarily true. Sometimes I go back, I watch the videos, and I be like, fuck, I shouldn't have said that. Or sometimes I say, fuck, I should have said more. But I said something along the lines of nobody was talking about this in my last video on social media. I said I only seen a few people talking about the Kenneka Jenkins story. That's definitely not true. Every fucking body was talking about it. But what I really meant to say was people weren't talking about it they were talking about the negative aspects of it. In other words, they was just trying to stir the pot. They was talking about the drama. They was talking about Irene and her glasses. People was doing Irene challenges and all that shit. That's the shit I was seeing for the most part. I'm talking about, I didn't see people genuinely, that came off genuine anyway, because, it's social media. You can't really gauge somebody's emotions through an app on a phone. But I just seen a lot of jokes and shit, and like I said, man, I feel like this situation is way bigger than just one person and one family, right? So yes, people were talking about it, but they were talking about it in a very negative way. And I feel like people were focusing on the wrong things. We were focusing on her friends in the room, and people with blue hoodie and this hoodie and that color and this color. You cannot solve a case through somebody's glasses and through a live video. That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard of in my life. Fast forward, right? I can't persuade anybody to change their opinion. That's not what this is, you know. But I do disagree with you when you say that the protesters were, you know, Mother Teresa ended the protest because, you know, she was aware of the fun. You did mention that in the video, and she definitely was aware of it because they did it on Facebook Live. I watched them do it. If I was aware of the fun, she was aware of the fun. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. She's right there with them, literally. They was standing next to her when they probably did this shit. I don't even remember exactly the day they did it, but I remember seeing them bring this shit to the public and basically explaining to them. What they explained was this. It was pretty clear. So we're going to create this fund. Any protest that, you know, takes place, especially one on this magnitude, it needs to be funded. That's just the bottom line. I've been to a few protests myself. Not any that were necessarily funded by anything in particular. It was just people, for the most part, we were just out there screaming and shouting. It wasn't really even structured. I can't really even say it was a protest because maybe I have the definition of a protest mixed up, and that's another thing that this situation taught me. This shit that they did was a protest, or at least it was an attempt, because they didn't necessarily get to where they were trying to go. But anyway, long story long, they created the fund, and the way that it was explained was that the fund was specifically to fund the protesters' costs in regards to them protesting the hotel, right? In other words, bus transportation. They was actually renting out buses, literally. We watched them do it. I was watching them do it, you know, because people were traveling from all over, and everybody, because of the attention that they put on it with their platforms on social media, because a few people heard about it before they got involved. I'm not going to act like they was the only ones. Other people knew about it and other people were talking about it, but they took it to another level as far as seeking justice for Kenneka. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like anybody else was going to go out there and really do that unless they didn't see the blueprint created. Most people is monkey see, monkey do. You know what I'm saying? It always is going to take that one person to break through, and everybody else is going to follow, right? So I feel like they brought it to another level, right? I digress. The fund was created, and what they said was that they were going to take care of all of the costs, including bailing people out of jail, because you had people out there getting arrested. These people wasn't out there doing nothing, you know, they wasn't on no, I mean, they was out there for justice by any means, but at the same time, it was a peaceful protest. You know, it certainly wasn't anything that I've seen protests go way far left than that. You know what I'm saying? So they was out there trying to do things the right way, trying to be peaceful, trying to actually develop relationships with the police and the family. You said something in your video about Jedediah, I guess, having an issue with confronting people. I guess you're saying, in other words, why everything he got to do it on Facebook Live, basically. If you weren't doing this for attention, then you wouldn't have a camera on you, I guess was your point. My response to that is simply, I mean, everything that I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do you do something not for attention? You know what I'm saying? Like, everything that we do, to a certain degree, we all doing it for attention. Like, I mean, it might not be to a certain level as the next, but like I was saying, man, what was I saying? Shit, that fucking thing keep going off. Not to mention, he actually made an attempt to speak to people in person. He was going out of his way to reach out to the family. It was the family, you know, it was Mama T's wishes to cut ties with the protesters. She was not calling them, and she wasn't responding to their phone calls. They was reaching out to her, and she wasn't responding. So I guess it's like, you know what I mean? I guess it's the only way that you could talk to somebody in that situation is on Facebook Live. It wasn't a problem for her to get on Facebook Live and end the protest. So, I mean, at that point, I guess it's only right. I guess this is how we're going to have to communicate from now on. If I'm trying to get in contact with you by phone and you're not responding, I'm going to figure out another way. That's just another avenue. That was just another outlet, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, this is not me trying to defend anybody. I feel like he's doing a good job of defending himself at this point. Like I said, if you've been following and you've been watching all the clips and the interviews, and even with all that said and done, that brother is still willing to go back out there and protest. He's still willing to help. He's still willing to go pay his respects in the funeral. I can't see how you could say that's for attention, man. I'm sorry. Like, it just don't add up to me. I mean, as far as him being an opportunist and as far as him addressing those things, I mean, let's be honest. I don't know if people are aware of the accusations, and like I said, I don't want to necessarily stir the pot because I feel like, that's his responsibility and that's his concern to, I'm concerned as a black man just seeing another black man under attack because that's my people's, and I feel like we've all dealt with these kind of things in the past and we know how we can relate, you know what I'm saying? The reason why he's being so public about defending it is because it was brought forth to the public, you know what I'm saying, and it was done in a way to discredit him. In other words, if he's planning on fighting for justice and fighting for freedom and all these things that he plans on doing, we're talking about a brother who was, basically planning on running for the mayor of Chicago. And he had a team of people and he had, that was basically what his next venture was going to be prior to the Kenneka Jenkins case. He put that off to fight for justice for this girl that he's probably never going to even get the answers for now, which is, that's kind of, you be the judge of that. Imagine what that person is going through. So, of course, he has to deal with it in the public because it was brought forth to the public. And the accusations, like I said, was some serious accusations. So he wanted to clear his name. And he did that. So, Andrew Holmes, I had a lot to say about Andrew Holmes in my previous videos. At this point, I'm kind of over it. I don't know who Andrew Holmes is. I've never heard of Andrew Holmes. Now, partially, some of that could just be me, my own ignorance, and not just basically not even caring. It's not that I don't care, because anybody who's an activist or an advocate for justice for the black community, or justice for any community, I guess, right? Justice for the black community is a friend of mine. As far as I'm concerned, I support them. Is what I'm really trying to say. And in the beginning, Andrew Holmes was the lead, I guess, activist in the forefront. And he was the first activist that we heard come out and say anything about this case, right? Andrew Holmes, I don't even know what to say about him at this point. Considering the way things have unfolded, I don't know what to fucking believe anymore. But what I do know, and just going by what that man said, Andrew fucking Holmes is the one that said what he said. And yes, Jedediah, the activist, who took over this situation, took over the case, he was standing with him in the beginning. And I don't know what conversation him and Andrew Holmes had in the beginning, but clearly he was convinced that Andrew Holmes was telling him the truth. And according to Jedediah, if you go and watch the Zach TV interview, which I recommend anybody who wants to hear the real situation, you need to watch that interview. He stood there for about maybe at least 45 minutes, and he gave the details from the beginning to the end. I digress. I say that to say this. Andrew Holmes, he basically misled him, and that's why he stood with him in the beginning. As far as him not bashing him, or basically coming out and speaking against him, I don't know if it was an opportunist thing, because he had plenty of opportunities to bash him, considering the shit that he said in the beginning. Andrew Holmes, I heard it out my own, I heard it out of his mouth with my own ears. He definitely did say he saw Kenneka walk into the freezer. So how can you say that and then, basically you went and said that you were speaking the mother's wishes, according to Andrew Holmes, was to call off the protest from the beginning. The mother said she never even gave him permission to watch the tape. So that was the first discrepancy. That was the first, the first thing to really raise people's eyebrows. Like, all right, this is something that's clearly wrong here. We have an activist who's supposed to be fighting for the freedom and the justice of our people and our community, saying one thing, then the hotel coming out and saying another thing. The hotel said they didn't have any fucking tape. So that now brings us back to Andrew Holmes' statement saying he saw the tape. That was all that was. So of course Jedediah detached himself away from that. You know what I'm saying? He didn't, I don't even know what their conversations was. I can't really even speak to that. But that was basically what I got from that. You know what I'm saying? One of these motherfuckers is telling lies, and you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I don't know if it's an opportunist thing. I just don't. As far as that. And, Andrew Holmes we've not heard or seen anything from him since. So you got to ask yourself, who's the fraud? You know what I'm saying? In that situation, the person who basically stood on the forefront, the person who's trying to be as public as possible, to me, is the one that's telling the truth. The motherfucker that just says one thing that's going against what the fucking hotel is saying and then disappears, we got to go check that motherfucker. And that was basically where I was coming from. It wasn't even about him saying, because everybody makes mistakes. And like I said, Andrew Holmes, I don't know much about him. But, he's apparently established in the Chicago area as an activist, right? He's been doing this for quite some time, as I found out. But we all make mistakes, you know what I'm saying? I don't got no personal thing with Andrew Holmes. At the end of the day, I just knew that I wanted answers for one of our young black queens who was found dead in a hotel freezer, and things were just adding up. And I just felt like anybody who, had information about that situation and was trying to be silent about it, we needed to throw their ass to the motherfucking wolves. You said some things in your video, sister, that I just quite wasn't really understanding. Maybe you could clarify a few things you were saying about. And like I said, I do. It's not that I don't agree with what you were saying. For the most part, you was absolutely correct. It's just for this particular case. Now, you mentioned some things about, maybe this could have been an accident, right? Now, honestly speaking, like I said, I've been following the case. I got people on foot on the ground, people that was out there protesting from day one. And like I said, just based on the facts, now we got to go to the facts. The disclaimer in my video is usually everything I'm saying is 1%, 99% my opinion, and 1% facts. Well, this is going to be the 1% factual part. Kenneka Jenkins did not accidentally die. That's just a fact. Kenneka Jenkins was murdered. That's a fact. The reason why I assumed, because I don't know this for a fact, that her mother was paid off, besides the fact that she ended the protest in a way to discredit them, as opposed to her picking up the phone, she could have picked up the phone and ended the protest quietly. Or if anything, she could have said, all right, guys, listen, I got the information I need to hear, regardless of whatever was in her ear, because we already know that there was somebody in her ear spreading these lies and accusations, which obviously in that situation, you dealing with a lot already. You're not trying to deal with no extra shit. You know what I'm saying? That's just being realistic about it. Like, I have to really think about it. Like, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to bury my daughter, and I just want to be at peace. I don't want to hear this shit about all these accusations, so she probably just got frustrated. You feel me? That's understandable, and I'm not saying she's wrong for ending the protest. She's wrong for the way she ended it, because those people sacrificed so much. We're talking about people that left jobs, left children, left their homes, left their regular everyday life, and to go stand in solidarity with this family. And I'll never say that that's the wrong thing. That's the right thing to do. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And we get on, we talk all this stuff about black empowerment. And when Jay-Z dropped an album and he said we got to support black, everybody throwing up the fist up emoji. But when the Jay-Z album passes 3 weeks, a month, the album is gone. I don't hear nobody on that no more. It's almost like we went right back to what we was talking about before that. You know what I'm saying? We talk about all this black empowerment, but when black people step up for other black people, I see our people tearing black people down for the most part. I don't expect anybody else to uphold us and uphold our name and uphold, our cause and our plight. I expect to see my people doing that shit. And what I've seen in this case, and the reason why I say that this was such an eye-opener, is because it's such a clear example of the reason why these things don't happen in our community. And maybe some of them shits won't ever happen, because every time we come together, it's always our people the one to bring us apart, and I just don't understand that. I seen our people doing the most of the talking. It was our people that came and infiltrated the protest. It was our people who came and spreaded the lies and all this other shit to get Teresa Martin to end the protest. And the only reason why I said I thought she was paid off, let me get to this shit, because I'm stalling. I keep saying it and I keep going the other way. Now, like I said, according to some sources, right, that we had, in Chicago on Friday, which was the biggest and the largest turnout for the protests, right? It was a slow build. Friday was their biggest turnout, nearly 2,000 people. Prior to that protest, it is my understanding that the mother of Kenneka Jenkins, her representatives, her legal representatives, her lawyers, met with the hotel representatives prior to the protest, and from what I'm understanding, she didn't even mention it to the protesters that she was having this meeting. So now fast forward, the protest is over. The following day, one would assume that there would even be more police than there was the night before. If you just seen the turnout get larger and larger by each day, to the point where it got to almost 2,000 people, you would automatically assume Saturday it's going to be 3,000, or maybe even, more than that. it was clearly growing. There was more people each time. So why was it that the Friday that she happened to have a meeting with these people, unbeknownst to the protesters, why was it that the following day, when they went out there to protest, there was not one police officer out there? Go back and watch the tapes. Go speak to somebody who was out there. Not one police officer was out there the following day. What does that tell you? I'm going off of facts and my opinion at the same time, but like I said, the fact of the matter is she did meet with these people. So now Saturday comes, it's not really that much police. It was no police. Why? What was the reason for that? Because they already had established something with that woman on the Friday that led them to believe, or that assured them that there wasn't going to be any more of a protest, that it was coming to an end. That's all that tells me. That's just me, you know what I'm saying, being like I said, man, we done seen this happen before. So to me, like, you know, like I said, man, she ended the protest on Sunday. You know, the person who's being accused of these accusations is the same person who helped her get the church so she could bury her daughter, if I'm not mistaken. He was helping her do all of that. Even I was chipping in, doing my part, calling churches, leaving messages and shit. I don't even go to church, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, it was nothing. Like, it wasn't like there's no credit for that as far as I'm concerned. I'd do that for any black woman or any, you know, family that's grieving the loss of a child, especially when there's no answers. But now I got to get you on this part. Let's fast forward, sis. Because the accident part, I just really don't understand at this point. Like I said, baby, you might want to look at some more things. But there's no way that this was an accident. If this was an accident, let's just say that what you said was correct. She was just drunk. She's underage. All these things we know exist in our community. But that's not the point. The point is, it happened in the confines of the Rosemont or the Grand Plaza Hotel, right? The issue we having with the hotel is I don't know if the hotel actually murdered her. I don't know if somebody from the hotel actually killed her. I don't know if somebody took her organs. I don't know all that. I can only assume that, you know what I'm saying? But what I do know is that it happened at the hotel. What I do know is they released footage and it wasn't in its full entirety. What I do know is that people, you know, a lot of people speculate a lot of things, you know. Do I know that if it was, I don't even know if that was her in the tape or not. And I also heard another thing from another person who was out there that said something along the lines of the hotel actually admitted to her mother her cause of death. They admitted to her mother that she was murdered. They admitted to her mother that they had a part in covering it up. I heard that she actually knows all of this information and she heard it from these people out of their mouth. So why wouldn't I assume that they paid her off? Because if the hotel told me that, I would ante up on the protest, if anything. I would come back with more people. Like, yo, they just snitched on themselves, y'all. They just told us what's up. Come on, man. They hit her with that hush money, that hush puppy, that fucking, you know what I'm saying? Take this and call me in the morning. If it was an accident, then all they simply had to do was cooperate with the family. Why? If it was an accident, why is it that they had to wait 21 hours before they reported it? If it was an accident, why didn't they just release the tapes in the beginning? If it was an accident, why did they have police out there protecting the hotel? If it was an accident, you see what I'm saying? Why did the autopsy come back inconclusive? There was an autopsy done. It came back inconclusive. If there was an accident, what was the accident? What was the cause of her death? She locked herself in a freezer and died of alcohol poisoning? Is that what we really about to go with? I'm sorry. That's bullshit. And I mean, at this point, anybody that believes that, I would like to have a word with you privately, because we need to talk about some stuff. Because, man, our communities, I got a little bit more faith in our communities than that. My young sisters is not out here just, you know, fucking taking swigs of Henny and just walking around hotels, locking themselves in the freezer. No, I'm sorry. I don't buy that. I'm going to go ahead and end this, because this shit is, like, bringing my blood pressure to another level. This shit has been completely a nightmare. I can only hope and pray that, you know, nothing like this ever happens to my daughter or my wife or anybody that's close to me, any female. I think about this shit just for the simple fact that, like I said, this could have been any one of our black sisters in that situation, you know. And I have people, family, you know, we do, like, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of hotels out there, and God forbid, you know, we're going to have to do some research on these hotels now. Because I done heard some things about the hotel owner, but that's a whole nother, you know what I'm saying? I'm done with this shit. At the end of the day, shout out to you, sis. I appreciate your input, and I appreciate, please feel free to respond if there's anything that I said in this video that you want to rebut. And I mean, we could, you know, it's all about having this conversation. I appreciate it. Black excellence, black love, black liberation, black power, all black everything, all black like arm head. You already know what it is. Shot Town, stand up.